what can you say about carp fishing apart from the fact that it is just a magnificent, magnificent sport, and there are one or two fish that stand out in this country as real targets. And the Burghfield Common is one in particular. I know you've got another very, very big common up here with the Tatton Park fish as well. And these are two probably of the most sought after fish in the whole of the country. I know Carp Talk did a survey, and those two were more or less neck and neck. And to catch any one of those is just an incredible feat. And we've got a man here that's caught that Burfield Common. He's also caught an awful lot of fish from Linch Hill too, and he's got some brilliant stories to tell. What he's just told me now is that this is his first show as well. So fair play. It takes a lot to come and stand up on stage. It's a big crowd. It's a great occasion. So let's welcome the man himself on stage now. Scott Lloyd.
All right.
Good luck. There we go.
Cheers, Rob. Don't know how much they paid you to say that. So yeah, this is my slideshow virginity, shall we say. Never done one before, but yeah, hopefully you'll like it. Got quite a few cool pictures and videos. Is that all right, yeah? Everyone hear me? Good lad. Yeah, so I've got quite a few good pictures and a few videos and that you might be interested in. And yeah, so a little bit about me. I'm Scott Lloyd, just in case you didn't know. I'm 28 and I am actually from Crewe, up these ways, which a lot of people don't know. Just because I fish a lot down south. Not that I've got anything against the northern fish, you know, I just want to catch as many as I can of the fish that I want from down there, and then if I ever go on to have kids or anything, I've got places that I can fish up here. So yeah, let's get started. First slide is, oh, fucking up, wrong side, one side. That was Miles, by the way, if anyone wants to know. let's have another look. Hey! But anyway, yeah, these first few slides are some fish that I caught from up these ways when I was younger. This was where it all sort of began for me, a little pit in Bartonley, just floating bread and things like that, as you do. And gradually the fish started to get bigger and bigger. I remember this actual lake used to look massive to me, but yeah, as you can see, it's only small. So yeah, this was me as a nipper. Still that cute, I know. And yeah, these are a few fish. This is a picture of me and my brother. And some of the local fish that I used to fish for, just like bagging it off school, as you do, going down to the local park lake. And yeah, like I say, as soon as I got sort of old enough, sort of 16, 17, I started to venture down south. I couldn't travel. I only got my driving license about 2 years ago, so whenever I was going down there, I was always getting lifts, just getting my mum to take me down there, drop me off. As long as I was getting down there, I didn't care when I was getting back, that sort of thing. So this was a fish called Misery from Top Flash in Winsford. I don't know if anyone knows that. Quite an hard lake back in the day. And this, to date, is still my biggest fish from the northwest. But hopefully one day I'll rectify that and get some of the big scaly stunners from around here. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I've only got about 40 minutes, probably 35 now. I've been waffling on a bit. I'm going to skip quite a bit of my stuff that I've done down south and jump straight to Stoneacres, because obviously as technology's got a lot better, my pictures have got a lot better, and I've got quite a lot of video footage from Stoneacres. So some of the stuff, like I've got a lot of underwater stuff and a lot of films from trees of fish cruising around and that, some stuff that you'll be interested in. So yeah, I started on Stoneacres, and this is 136 miles for me. So on top of like just fishing a rock-hard lake like Stoneacres, every time I've got an 136-mile trip down there. So, and like I say, getting lifts as well. So this is how I get a lift sometimes. You know, there'd be 3 of us going down, and I'd get in the back of the van, no problem. Stop at every services on the way for a quick smoke and that, you know how it is. So yeah, this is the lake. It's about 50 acres in size. The stock, I'd say, these days is more like 60 fish. When I first started, it was around about 70 fish, but yeah, about 60 fish now. So you can imagine 50 acres, 60 fish. A lot of them congregate together or maybe in 2 different groups, so you can imagine that it's not that easy, you know, it's really big chucking. And when I first started on there, the rules were that you could use the boat, so you could row out or use your engine, go out in the boat, but you couldn't drop your rigs. You had to cast. So as far as you could cast, you could go out and bait up from the boat and things. So that made it a lot easier, but you had to be a big chucker. Let's wait for this camera. Hey. yeah, so he had to be a big chucker. So when I first went on there, you had people like Miles Gibson, Sean Gately, Ed Betteridge, all big chuckers, 180 yards plus, you know, kissing marker folks at 180 yards. It's something that I've never done, and it's not my way of fishing. I much prefer to get up the trees, find the fish in the edges, get to know the fish and the whereabouts, let them give it away, and then approach it that way. So I noticed that this is a little video of me getting up the tree. This is the sort of thing that I get up to. I wouldn't suggest that you don't try this at home. You know, I've done a lot of tree climbing over the years, and I'm really quite good at it. I work at height, and yeah, as you can see that, I was always the kid when you were younger. I was always the kid going up the tree to tie the rope for the tarsi. So yeah, that's where it sort of stems back to, I think. And then obviously what comes up must come down. And like I say, don't try this at home. If you're not a confident tree climber, don't do it, because the last thing I want is someone ringing me up saying I broke my neck because of you. But yeah, that's a little bit of me. So yeah, like I say, I noticed that everyone was using the boats, casting out right into the middle, as far as he could chuck, where all the fish would hold up. But because I'm getting this sort of height up trees, I can see 100, 120 yards out. As long as you've got a good pair of shades on, you can see them. And I noticed as soon as everyone went out in the boats to bait up and things and check their rigs, that all the fish were just coming down the middle of the lake. They were shit scared of the boats, pretty much. And they're just more up in the edges, and they were giving themselves away. So straight away, I thought, this is a bit of me, you know, and everyone really catching in the edge on Stoneacres, it obviously been done, but the norm was to get as far as you could chuck, and you catch them out there. This is a little bit of video footage. Oh, wow, that's bright. Hopefully you can see these fish here. There'd always been rumours of a big common in Stoneacres, but no one had ever caught it. The biggest we ever knew was a fish called the pinch belly common. It was about 34 pound. And there was, you know how it is, every lake, there's big rumours of big commons, you know. And I'd seen one, this exact fish here, and I knew it was bigger than 34 pound. I'm quite a good judge of weight, and I thought, that is bigger. And I remember saying to Miles Gibson, he was on at the time, that's how I was getting down there as well. So big up Miles, yeah, nice one. Yeah, I was getting down with him every week, and I said to him, I've seen a big common in here, mate. And he's like, oh, I've heard all the rumours, there's no big common, no one's had anything like that. And I thought, he said to me, I know you're not lying because I know you see and find big fish, but the best way to prove him wrong was to catch it, and he was right. So that's what I did. My first fish out of Stoneacres was probably one of the rarest when I caught it. It wasn't quite 40 pound, it was just under 39. But it hadn't been out. We traced it back for just over 5 years. And I'd watched this fish feeding confidently for hours and hours on end, and eventually I ended up catching it just on a single nut. But yeah, I had that one, and then my second fish was this one. Another really rare carp. It's called the number 9 bus. Again, just under 40 pound, but super rare carp. I mean, the longest, well, before last year, this was definitely the longest fish I'd ever caught. So yeah, I'm just going to sort of skim across Stoneacres, because like I said, I've only got probably about 20 minutes left now, well, 25. So I'm going to skim across quite a few of the fish that I had there, because I want to get to sort of Berfield and some of the stuff that I went through there. So this was me, obviously using the boat, scoping the bottom. This is stuff that not a lot of you can probably relate to, so I thought I'd show you quite a bit of sort of underwater. I've got some underwater footage to show you the sort of things that you'd be looking for out there in the boat, and some of the things that you'd find, some scary stuff. So yeah, here we go. So this, I mean, is that me? Yeah, so this is the sort of thing you'd be looking for. Obviously, you could go out and put your blocks out there, H-box. They'd unravel, go to the bottom. And these are the sort of spots that I was fishing. Should go under the water. Just tiny little holes in the weed. And this is obviously the carp just ripping up the naturals, getting down there and finding the good stuff. And that's the sort of thing that would be a bite spot, you know, potentially. Like I say, there wasn't that many fish, so the location, you had to find them first. And as soon as you go out there in the boat, it was easy to push them away. Another one here. This is quite scary, actually, to think that the carp can actually do this. This is a carp, what I'd call a carp tunnel. They've burrowed this out, pushed all the weed to the side, and this is probably about 2 acres of Canadian weed. And they've made a big old tunnel in there so they can just go in there and hide whenever they want. I mean, and that's quite a scary thought, you know, 50 acres, 60 fish, and there's a hole that they can all just go in and hide, and you can't even get a rig. I mean, unless you go diving in there, that probably Rob could do, you ain't going to catch them. So it's scary stuff, really. This is me and my brother, you know, I'll get a bit of a shout out to our kid, you know, I fish with him for years and years, bit of a fishing partner, definitely. And this is 2014, and this is worth mentioning that this year, the rules changed. It went from being able to cast to your box to being able to drop your rigs. You could tow them out or take your rod out with you, drop your rigs wherever you wanted. Some people like that rule, some people don't, but it's definitely a lot safer for the fish in my eyes, because you haven't got people trying to hit the horizon and cracking off all the time, ends up trailing fish all over the place. So yeah, this year, 2014, you're allowed to drop your rigs. My brother, call him our kid, he was a little bit behind me on the Stone Age, because I went on to there a couple of years previous of him, and he was still fishing Christchurch at the time. But when he did eventually come over, what did he do? Went and caught the fish that I was after straight away. Second fish. This was my target, my prime target, bite mark, and he had it there, 49 pound 1 ounce. Obviously, you can see, I don't need to even the picture tell you about that fish. That's why I was after it. Absolute banger. So carrying on, this is when the drop-in rig came in, the rule, sorry. But that didn't mean I was always going out there just dropping rigs all the time. I was still doing my bits, climbing up the trees, finding the fish, fishing in the edge, bits like that, casting at showing fish. So it wasn't always straight to the boat, because it can be a hindrance. If you go out in the boat where the fish are, you're just going to push them away and probably push them onto someone else. These are some of the fish that I had. Real rare one, this one, a fish called gold shoulder. Old fish, probably one of the oldest fish in the lake. Absolute banger. About 39 pound. And this one, this is called Mr. Magoo. It's got a big red eye on the other side. 42 pound, 6 ounces, I think. You know, so these are the sort of fish that I was there. And it makes sense probably to you now why I'm traveling so far to go and catch these fish. Absolute bangers. There's a nice shot there. That'll be old Dan Wildboy on the camera. Most of these pictures, big shout out to Dan, most of these pictures will be his. You know, he's good on the camera. Well, he's all right. Oh, there's me naked again. I thought I'd throw a few butt shots in there. Have another look. And obviously, as soon as you're getting wet, you got to strip down and change. Another fish, this is the fighting machine. Like I say, I'm going to skim over a lot of these fish. But a fish called 5 scales, and I don't know if you can just see down here near its tail, it's picked up a little bit of tail damage here, cracked its tail, whether that be in the fight or in the net or whatever, I don't know, or if it already had it, but we did actually repair it, and I'm told that to this date it's still repaired now. We got it sewn up with some floss and that. Another video, nice video. This fish, I don't know if I can swear, this fish, the ghosty, is an absolute nightmare of a fish. That's probably the best way I could put it. It's literally like a pond fish. It comes in, say for instance, if you had a rig in the edge and that ghosty comes in and it susses it out, it will be vexed up, charging around, scare everything out the swim. Like the amount of times this fish costs me other fish is unreal. You know, it's an absolute nightmare. So rare as well for that reason, because it's just so riggy and scarce. Anything, it'll just spook off. If it picks up the line on its peck or anything like that, it'll just be off and it'll take all the other fish with it. So eventually, I did manage to catch it. This is its gob, absolutely pristine, proper like love tunnel there. But yeah, you can see that it doesn't get caught much, and this is it. It's the only ghosty in there. Really random, I know, but it's big, about 34 pounds, something like that. But like I say, really rare one, so I thought I'd definitely mention that one. This is a good example of the sort of things that are happening to people out in the lake. You know, like I say, I'll let the video do the talking. This is the sort of spot that I'd be fishing, big open area. You can see where the fish had worked down the silt, down to the gravel, and I don't know if you can make out that black line there. it'll come more on the screen in a minute. There's a big black line, and that's where I've been fishing. I knew I'd had fish on me all night, and I just thought, what's gone on? So I went out there with a camera, and I soon realised all the bait was gone, and my rig had been well and truly done. You'll see it here now. There's a big black line at the top of the screen there. That's where my lead's been. It's been dragged away, and the fish has shook its head, and you can see the disbursement of silt at the end, and my hook bait sat right in the line. And that's why I hadn't had a take, because I've been done. So this is me placing rigs onto spots, so you can imagine some of the stuff that you guys are going through, and still me myself, when you're casting, you know, you're not going to get it right when you're dropping, so never mind when you're casting. These are some of the commons. I haven't shown any commons. Real nice, long, lean, perfect commons in there. And again, look at that, black as your hat. Real white lip on it, overslung. And this sort of brings us to about the end of 2015, it would have been. About 2015, this is my latest capture on there, mid-November. And yeah, I'd had a really good season this season. I had 21 fish in a season, which is, I'd say, pretty much unheard of. You know, on there, if you had 5 fish in a season, you were doing really well. Double figures, really, really well. And I've known lads to do 100 nights of blanks on there, no problem, just sit through it. It's not the easiest place in the world, definitely. This will bring me into 2016. This is a fish called Baby Bungles. I was like, I felt on fire, you know, I felt unstoppable. I just had a really good season, 2015. This was actually the first fish out off the deck. I was on it, all guns blazing for the spring, because Bite Mark was a spring capture. You know, it'd come out once a year, if that, sometimes go on the missing list for about 3 years. So I wanted to be there in the spring, and I got down there nice and early. I had this like late March, and then this is the session where it all ended. You know, I'll let you in on that. This is where it happened. I got down, it was like mid-April, mid to late April. I'd had an argument with the missus, as you do when you're going to go fishing, just so you can set off a little bit early. I think it was about midnight, ended up causing a fake argument, and yeah, just shot out the door. I'm off fishing, and I turned up in the dark, and the fish were just crashing out, about 20 yards out. Put a couple of choddies out, and this was the result in the morning. Fish called Mini Choco. The next day, the fish disappeared. They went further out in the lake, so I got some rods rocking out at range, and I went out there and I actually found the fish eating from the boat, and they all shot off. I thought they were up to something, pulled up a load of the weed, and they were eating snail eggs in the onion weed. I thought, this is what they're after. Put a couple of traps there, and this was a fish that I had straight away off that one of them spots, and I'd seen a really good fish showing out over me, and I just knew it was going to happen. I'm pretty sure it was Bite Mark. I was buzzed up in the swim. I rung my mate Nick, who's the bailiff on there, and I said, you need to come down here, mate, because this is going to happen. That right-hand rod there, it's going to happen. And this is a video of how buzzed up I was. And I might even do this at the end when I'm finished. This is what I was up to. That right-hand rod was going to go, and I knew it. And literally, as he gave me my phone back, this happened. The right-hander's gone. I'll just let this play away. If I hadn't have ran forward there, I'd have definitely lost that fish. Fishing on the braid, just on a short line, I'd have lost that fish 100%. We all know this moment. If he misses it, it's game over. Not too sure what it is just yet. Whoa, beep. That was it. It was Bite Mark, as you'll hear right now. And that was it, all done. You know, I ended up doing 169 nights in total over 3 seasons for 35 fish, which doesn't probably sound a lot in 169 nights, but trust me, it is on a place like that. And here's a few pictures. Absolutely. I mean, look at the colours. Look at on his jaw there. Just that purple, pink, beautiful. And there she is. 45 pound, 12 ounce. And then, obviously, another naked picture. Really good social place, Stone Acres. Had loads of mates. Big social that night, obviously. And then this followed. Literally, straight from there onto Berfield the following week. My ticket rocked up. Now, Berfield is in Reading. 168 miles from me. Further now, I'd got my driving license, so it was a lot easier. But the thing is, when you're fishing places like that, every single mile is fueled by just knowing what's in there. You know, what fish am I going to catch? The one that I'm after, the Burghfield Common, the ultimate prize in my eyes. You know, I grew up looking at this map when I was younger. It was Nigel's map, and that was the only fish out there left, them history fish, you know, fish like Heather and the Black Mirror, all them fish, Mary, they'd all disappeared, and the Burfield Common was the only one that was left. And this is a bird's eye view of it. 9,500 acres, you can't really tell, but everything you see here is Berfield. Apart from these dark blue ones, it's all Berfield. So you can imagine it's an absolute head fuck. Sorry, excuse my French. Yeah, it's a maze. You know, it's crazy. You know, you've got 26 islands on the place. And where these white lines are here around the banks, that is out of bounds. So you're talking all this water here is out of bounds. You're talking about 35, 40 acres. You've got so many bays, like I say, between all these islands up here, you can't fish in there because obviously it's dangerous. There's no swims that can fish between there. They've got loads of safe zones. On top of that, actually winds me up talking about this lake. On top of that, the crayfish are an absolute nightmare. I don't know if anyone's ever dealt with crayfish, but they are in numbers, mental numbers. And so much so that you can't even keep a hook bait on for like 10 minutes. You put a bottom bait in, out of the bag, it's going to be gone in 10 minutes. Not all the time, but the chance was there for it to happen. So if the chance was there for it to happen, you had to sort it out. So I was always fishing rubber or tiger nuts, and they'd even take tiger nuts off. You couldn't fish putty on your rigs, putty up your lines, anything that touches your skin, the crayfish will be on. They just love it. Absolute nightmare, and there was so many of them. On top of that, you've got speedboats that come out of this. There's a compound for the boats there, and they'll go up and down, big banana boats, kids on jet skis. It was a nightmare. So not only were you restricted in the part of the lake that you could fish, you're also restricted in the time of day that you can fish in some swims. You know, you'd be sat there with 3 rods out, absolutely rocking. Oh, there's a fish on me. Next minute, speedboat, you know, just cut all 3 rods out. You have to have your wits about you. All them boats will just come through, cut you off. Absolute nightmare. And on top of that, you've got this one fish. You're going to see some really cool videos of this fish in a minute. You know, what it's like, its behavior in the water. It's a real loner. I noticed that from get-go. So not only is the whole lake a nightmare, you've got this one fish that's an absolute wizard. You know, it will suss anything out. And like I say, it was a loner. It had 1 or 2 friends that you'll see that it knocks around with all the time. So you imagine you're fishing for a fish the stock's about 150 fish. And if it's a loner and you know that it's a loner, because I did loads of watching of it, you know it's a loner, and you turn up and you see a load of fish in a swim, you're like, oh, this looks good for a bite. That's not where I'm going, because I was only fishing for the Burfield Common, and I knew if I saw a load of fish out there showing, she ain't there. So it's hard to walk onto a lake, find a load of fish, and walk away from them. So yeah, we'll crack on. I've got a few pits here. That's another thing. It was just all terrain. This isn't a nice little sort of day ticket water that's gravelled up with a nice path. This is like a forest. Literally, if you wanted to walk this lake, it'd take you 4 to 5 hours. I'm not trying to big myself up about the lake. You know, this lake is an absolute nightmare. And like, no matter what I say today, unless you actually go down there and fish it yourself, you're never going to appreciate how much of a head fuck this place is. So yeah, it'd take you 4 or 5 hours walk around, and you would be cut up to death like this. You know, this was a common sight when I was getting home. You know, I'd have cuts everywhere, and I mean everywhere. You know what I mean? So yeah, crayfish, tench, another thing, absolute nightmare. You know, these could mess your chances up all the time. Tench and a big stock of bream, so everything is against you. Not only that, this is the sort of view that you've got out your swim. Not very good. You imagine a nice round pond coming from Stone Acres, pretty round. It's quite easy to spot the fish where they are, whereas if you're in a little bay, you don't know what's going on in the other 95 acres. You're just stuck in this little bay, and you might not see something for 3-4 days, you know. So I was fishing it real mobile, on my toes, trying to find her. This is another bird's eye view of it. I just thought I'd throw this in because it shows you a real life picture. Another video. This is an example of the speedboats. Absolute nightmare. It just, honestly, it brought me to tears so many times, this place, you know, and I'll hold my hands up now and say, I've turned up there, especially with the out of bounds, you know, 35 acres, more stuff. Everything was double in size. Look at that beetle. It's massive. It must have been the size of a lighter. It's like everything's prehistoric. You'd expect like a dinosaur to come walking through the fucking bushes at you. Like, it's a nightmare. But yeah, I'll hold my hands up and say many a time I've been down there and I couldn't find the fish that I was after, and it has nearly brought me to tears, so much so where I've left the lake. You know, I know that doesn't sound very good, but that's how much torture it is. I've walked out in the middle of the lake just screaming my head off, like, where are you? You know, like, just can't find it. And you're going to see some videos in a minute, and you'll know what I mean. I started it, my first session, fishing in the edge, as you would. A place called Pit 2, which is this sort of bit that stems off here at the top there. It's its own separate lake, but believe it or not, it's a part of Berfield. It's connected to Berfield by a little stream. And the fish get through there. It's like 6 foot wide and a foot deep. And they get in there, and I found a load of fish in there. And I hadn't found the Burghfield Common, but I found fish feeding. I thought, I'm going to have a go for these. And I did. And I ended up catching my first Berfield fish. It wasn't one that I wanted, but this fish did me massive favours, taught me a lesson, because as soon as I put this fish in the net, I was buzzing, but at the same time I thought, what am I doing? I'm wasting time fishing for these other fish that I know I'm not after. I knew the Burghfield Common wasn't there, so what was I doing in there? I wanted this one fish and one fish only, so I had to go on the hunt. So I put the tackle away and went hunting for her, and I came across her. This is a part of the lake called the Dog Leg. It's up at the top right-hand side here where it all goes into like a curve at the top corner there. There's a plateau there, and this was my first ever sighting of the Burghfield Common. She's with her little mates, 3 of them, usually 4 of them, and this was one thing that I noticed. Notice that tail coming out the water. This was a really good piece of information that I picked up about the Burghfield Common from get-go. Because every time she put her shoulder out, her tail would come out, and it'd be about 4 foot behind it because it's so long. So that taught me a good lesson to say, if I ever see a shoulder out the water, this could be 100, 150 yards, and I could see it through the binos and see a tail about 4 foot behind it. I knew it was her, you know, and she was always on her own. I had a little go for her straight away. There was, like I say, about 4 or 5 fish there, and they were paying a lot of attention on this plateau, and I thought, I'm just going to fish through them. This was pre-spawning, so I knew she was susceptible to a bite pre-spawning. So that's what I did, and straight away, I've had a bite, and I didn't know what it was. Literally, she's out there on the plateau. This could have been her, but it wasn't. I was very, very disappointed when this one rocked up in the net. I did a couple of little self-takes with it, and I got up the tree, and she was still there, believe it or not. I could not believe it. She was still there. She'd obviously mooched off, but she came back. Like I say, it was all pre-spawn activity, and I was there. It was perfect timing. This is the sort of place where I was. The plateau was literally just out there, 30-yard flick. There's an island to the right, real close quarters, but literally I would like it. This spot here is what they created. To the left of this duck, I don't know if you see that little bright patch there, that's where they kept working, and they kept coming up. And I knew it was her every time she came over this plateau, because it was only about 1.5 foot deep, and she's about 2.5 foot deep. So her shoulder would come out, and I knew it was her. And she'd come up, and my hook bait is literally right on this little bit of gravel, just at the front of it. And I had to watch this. This was horrible. She came up, and I saw my white hook bait disappear into her mouth. She stops there. And she's got it. The rod's beeping. You can't hear it on the video, but the rod is beeping, and she's shaking her head and shaking her head. And I fly down the tree, and by the time I get there, she's gone. She's done me. Absolutely gutted, as you can imagine. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to go into detail because I've only got about 10 minutes left. I did end up losing her that session. After that, she came back, and I lost her. This was the next encounter with her. This was probably the best footage I've ever caught on camera. I'm sure you agree. I've slowed it down so you can see it, and I'll probably play it a couple of times. This is her boshing out. And I caught it on camera. Absolutely buzzing. And to see her bosh out, I knew she was in certain zones. I was starting to build up these patrol routes that she was using. I felt like I was really getting inside her head. And like I say, I'd learnt her little mates that she knocked around with. There was a fish called the classic carp that she always got around with that was about 33 pound, and another one that I went on to call pointy face because it had a really pointy face. And she was always with them. This was my next encounter with her. This is called Alsatian Bay. This is me up a tree. Alsatian Bay is down here. So total opposite end of the lake, but that's probably 3/4 of a mile from the last time I saw her. This is a little video of her. I hope you can see this. I wasn't too sure how it was going to turn out. I will zoom in a minute. This is her with her 2 little mates that I mentioned. Come on. That's her in the middle there. I've got a better picture of her here now. There she is, sat next to a 20-pounder. I don't know if you can make that out. That's a 20-pounder, and look at her. Honestly, like, if you hook that fish, you got to be ready for it. You know, you ain't going to get it on a centre pin with 2-pound line. It's going to rip you up, and trust me, I know. This is another little bit of footage. I put a couple of mixers out here, and I cocked them, and she separated herself off. And she comes round and she has one, and whenever she wanted to feed, she'd always separate herself off from anything else. It was like she was a little bit, I don't know, it was really weird. It is a behaviour that I've seen before. And she has this mixer here now. But there was no chance that I was going to put any mixer gear out there with all that weed there. You know, she's just loving life. She knew she was safe. Look at the width of it. Unbelievable. So yeah, I was getting good sightings of her all over the lake. It seems like it was easy, but this isn't easy. You know, I know there's a lot of video here for you to see, but it was by no means easy. I ended up doing 4 days and 4 nights fishing in that swim, waiting for her to come back, and I didn't see a single fish. Sat up the tree all day, didn't see nothing. This was another encounter that I had where I thought that she was on me. She was getting in and out of this bay, and I saw her come out, and he stopped on a spot that I was baiting. I got a couple of rods out, and they were fizzing like anything. This is like 3 or 4 fish as well, you could tell, and I thought, is it her and her mates? And I actually went on to lose a fish after this as well, which I was pretty devastated about. It cut me up, tore me in some snags. I mean, that's fizzing. That was the sort of thing that you like seeing. Next encounter, like I say, I know there's a lot of encounters here, but I just kept seeing her at different parts of the lake. This is between these cigar islands here, a real long island. She knew she was safe. You couldn't get into any of that area there. You see this big cluster of islands. How could you get a rod in there? The white circles are your swims, so there's no swims in that area. She knew she was safe. Another little bit of video. This was after spawning. She looks a little bit smaller, but it's and she's with the same fish again. Same few fish. And this is, I watched this do this for 3 days. This is her here, stuck in the middle. I watched her do it for like 3 days, you know, and she'd be there in the morning, she'd be there at night. I'm like, is she coming out? Like, you know, I've only got a few days, but I'd have to sit through it. This was a swim called the compound swim. It's here. Looks out at this angle, and I got this swim opened up, luckily. It used to be a bayless swim, and they weren't fishing it, and I said, look, we all want to fish it, it's a good zone. 2017 came around, and the plan was to fish the spring. Actually, I'll mention first, the rules changed. This out of bounds now became inbounds, and the inbounds became out of bounds. So we still had a 20-acre piece of water that we couldn't fish, and this bit opened up, which was obviously buzzing, but we only had this one swim here that fished this bit of water, really, so it didn't really do much. So the spring plan was to just sort of fish for what I see. Obviously, I'm not going to get up trees and find the Burghfield Common in 2 foot of water in March, April. So yeah, I did a night in that new swim, and then I ended up going at the big one show last April this was. I was there, and I left early on the Sunday to get down because I knew that I wanted to get into this compound swim. I'd seen them wake up there in the spring the year before, and I wanted to get in there, and this was the swim. There's an island on your left-hand side and an island to your right. So fishing from this bit here, should have a laser really, fishing from here, fishing out here. And it was like 6 foot in that whole bay, and then it dropped off to 16 foot as you got to the island. And it was a real nice deep ledge, and I knew it was full of clay. I was bringing loads of clay back. It's about 135 yards. This is me. I don't know if you see me stood in the swim there. I'm fishing out this direction, but you can see what I've got to deal with. I've got dot islands on this side. I've got big jetties that's mounted on, scaffolding on the right-hand side. Real dangerous stuff, you know, if you're to walk a fish. This is, again, the swim. That's the island on the left, and I'm fishing out past to the right-hand side of it. The session started off really bad. I lost 2 fish on the bounce because it was a schoolboy error, and I was using mono. It was never going to happen. I was never going to catch fish from out there, fishing over that 16-foot ledge with mono. I ended up sorting out, I re-spooled, put braid on all reels, you know, there's something that not everyone would do, you know. Put the braid on, re-spooled all there in the session, and the next day, after losing them 2 fish, I caught a couple. I had that one and this one, 42 pound, absolutely buzzing my tits off, first Berfield 40, and I'd been avoiding these fish for ages. So I thought, you know, maybe I've been doing the wrong thing, should have just fished through them, they're beautiful fish. But yeah, all the fish were showing on me, I was getting a lot of shows in the zone, so I knew it looked good for a bite, but again, I didn't think it looked good for her, because she was a loner, she wasn't with all these fish. The next day came around and I didn't see anything in the zone. It was the big moon, nothing was in the zone, it all moved into what was now the out of bounds. And I just thought, this could easily be a good chance for her to rock up now. I remember my brother saying, oh, do you want to go for a mooch? And I was like, no, I've got to dig my heels in and wait. Yeah, and this is what happened. About 12:30, I was on the phone to my mum and I've had a bite off what felt like a small fish straight away. I picked it up and it felt almost tense-like. I had a beep on the next rod and luckily passed it under the rod, knowing it had gone under the other braided line, and it was the right decision to make. Because had I not passed it under, I'd have took the other rod out. I got it in, and as soon as it went in the net, I knew what it was. It was the fish that I call pointy face, the one with the real pointy face. It's because it's got this mouth, well, it's not mouth damage, it's a deformity. How I got a hook bait in there, I don't know. But yeah, I had it, and it looked at me, and I thought, oh my God, this is her mate. I knew 100% that I had her mate. She was in the bag, so straight away I've just like nicely put this fish into a retainer and then got my net set back up for what could possibly happen. I've jumped straight back on the phone to my mum, and next minute, the other rod has just gone off, like literally ripping it in. I've picked it up, I was fishing locked up, but I've had to give it line, and it's just gone zzz, like that. No flicking the tail, it's just like a train, and it's going, and it's kited out to the right, away from the island. I'm thinking buzzing. And literally, as it's done that, it's gone left, straight round the island, and I'm thinking, I've lost this here, and I can feel it on the braid, every nut and cranny, and we've had the drone up there since, and there's trees all around that island. How it didn't cut me off, I don't know, or how it didn't get in one of the snags, I don't know. And I ended up just pumping it, and my line was just going straight into the corner into a bush on the corner of the island. Eventually, she came round, and she just hit the surface and bow waved towards this jetty that's on my right-hand side, and she's going for it. It's almost like I've lost it, but I can just see my line cutting through the water, and she's still on. I managed to get connection with her, steered her away from that, and then she's come across the front of me and gone around a dot island on my left-hand side. How I did not lose this fish, I do not know. I think my name just must have been on it. Eventually, she just went into the net, and it was the Burghfield Common. I've cut that story quite a bit short because I am running out of time, but here's some video of like the events that unfolded.
Jump out the way there. Jump.
Well done, Scott.
Well done, Scott. Stick the camera in.
All this bit.
It's over 60 pounds. Basil.
That's my brother. Wanker. And that's that. And these are some of the special pictures. I mean, look at the gob on that. Like, unbelievable. Mental. And there she is. Burfield Common. It was 62 pound, 8 ounce. It hadn't been out for it was nearly 3 years since Laney had her. She had her at he had her at 55 pound. But this was the first time she'd ever come out in the spring, really, you know, pre-spawn, and we knew she could be really big. And I was just the lucky one to catch it, really. Obviously, there was a little bit of skill involved, I suppose, but my name was just on it. I was the 11th person to ever capture. She's only been caught 11 times. So, yeah, and that's about it. Left the mark, and that's it. Nice one, guys.